Well, I'm really excited about this conversation today. I recently started a series of conversations with leaders who I admire. One of them is my distinguished classmate, Chris Cassidy, from the Naval Academy, great class of 1993. I'll just give you a bit of background on Chris. One of the most humble guys you'd meet in your life, especially for all the things he's done. So we're classmates at the Naval Academy. He went to Buds to be a SEAL, saw combat in Afghanistan, then had another calling, decided to be an astronaut, ended up being the chief astronaut for a period of time, and if I recall correctly, spent a grand total of over a year in space.
Yep.
And after retiring as a chief astronaut, was the first ever CEO of the Medal of Honor Museum here in Texas. And it's great to have you here today, Chris.
Great to be with you, Jamey.
You and I have talked about this, but I think it'd be great for our audience to hear just a little bit about the backstory. Like, how'd you ever end up at the Academy? What was the foundation of your early life that took you to the Academy and beyond that really set you up for success?
Yeah, when I was a young guy, I was not thinking about the military. My dad spent a couple years as a draftee in Vietnam, but then was out kind of when that ramped out. So no real formative military presence in my world. Growing up, it was all sports and just friends and normal stuff. And then as I got to be like in middle school, started to learn the benefits of work and working and do a good job when you go mowed lawns. I did basic stuff, mowed lawns. I picked corn at a farm.
Oh, I grew up in small town Iowa, did the same. You're from Maine.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in a pretty rural community?
Yeah, small town. It's a coastal town. We didn't live on the beach. My house, it was inland a little bit, but coastal town, meaning that in the summertime it was inundated with tourists, which meant for me, there was tons of jobs, working in restaurants, mowing lawns, all kinds of things. And then they all left at the end of the summer, and it was just a quaint little small town where everybody could play a fall sport. Every kid could play. The same group just then switched over to winter sports, and the same group switched over to a fall sport. So sports was all year long for me. So the more kids you're exposed to, multiple coaches, more leadership styles you're exposed to as a young guy, gal, whatever. And in retrospect, right, in the moment, as a kid, I didn't realize that. I just thought I was having fun playing sports. But when you think back on it, those are really, really important times to kind of help shape who you are. And then I remember the first time I got a repeat job as a lawn mowing kid, and it was because the first people referred me. I thought, and it kind of was a clue, like, if you do a good job and show up when you say you're going to show up and be respectful, you'll get more work, and I can go to more movies and put more gas in my car. And so those little things early, I think were pretty important for me. Again, I didn't know it at the time, but they were, and helped, once you get in Pleep Summer and all this stuff, it helps a great deal. Yeah.
As I've really thought back on our experiences and what, I look at in leaders today in general, it's this phrase resilience that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious whether it was sports or just the blue collar labor you did when you were a kid. What do you remember being experiences that started building resilience?
Yeah, the very first one was there was a corn farm that was just like a half mile from my house. It was an easy place to ask the farmer if I could work. I was 13, I think. And I rode my bike there in the dark at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. And all the other boys were like 16. And I was way younger, way smaller, easy to pick on. And I constantly got picked on. They put lube oil on my bike seat. They ganked up my bike chain. They did everything to me. And I hated it. And I was like so miserable. And I came home after a week and told my mom, like, I don't want to work there anymore. And she said, no, just stick it out. It'll get better. And my dad, same thing. And that was kind of the first part of, grind through it, work, do one more push-up, get to the next evolution. And it did get better. And the older boys, they stopped picking on me, and I became friends with them, and it just, life got better. But there was a couple weeks where I didn't want to be there, and resilience got me through.
Well, it sounds like you earned their respect by sticking up for yourself and not letting it bother you.
I think you're right, earning a little bit of respect just by doing my job and kept on showing up.
When do you remember learning about service academies in general, and then what was it about them or the Naval Academy specifically that had you think, hey, I think I might go give that a try?
This is an interesting story. I tell it often because it's really, really kind of shaped me. Um, so my brother and dad and we loved watching football, and so we always watched Army Navy football games. So I kind of knew about those two service academies specifically, all as a young kid watching sports. And then when this notion of college started to trickle into my life, like, I don't know, freshman, sophomore year in high school or something, and everybody's talking about colleges and and I knew I wanted to go, but then I realized it cost money to go there. And we weren't dirt poor, but my parents, I knew they couldn't pay for the whole thing. And I was a good student, but not enough to get a full ride. There were other kids way smarter than me. And I was a decent athlete, but not enough to get guaranteed a
Yeah.
scholarship where I wanted to go anyways, right? Like I got maybe in football, I got some interest in some smaller schools. But anyway, the point of all that is I figured out I had to kind of help solve this pay for college situation. And that's when,
That's a big motivator.
yeah, and that's when I learned in the guidance counselor's office about ROTC and service academies are free. I mean, I knew about Navy and West Point, but I didn't know they were free until that point. And so I was pretty interested in it. But from my hometown to Annapolis is like 8 hours, and it was maybe 4 or 5 to West Point. And that also factored, like, that's perfect amount. Like, I can get home for Thanksgiving, but my parents can't just drop in on me. 8 hours is a perfect distance. So I applied and sent off the package to the congressman's office, did the interview, went well, and the lady afterwards, she's like, okay, good job. And I thought, okay, that's it, I'm done. And she said, yep, you're done. That was the fall of senior year. Then later, spring of senior year, everybody's finding out about colleges, and I was getting it from other schools, but nothing from Navy. And so I called the admissions office, very helpful lady. She's like, oh, yeah, I can help you out. Tell me your name. I tell her my name. Can you spell your name? I just hear her looking through files on the side. Social security number, I tell it. You're not in our system. So what happened, Jamey, is I failed to realize or ask the question or read properly that you have to apply to the school and the congressman at this kind of parallel things. So here it is late in the year, and I really hadn't applied to the Naval Academy.
So you'd gotten a nomination, but hadn't applied to the
I had
Academy?
a nomination, but the Naval Academy didn't even know who the heck I was. And this is where it gets interesting why I tell the story, because my friend and we were going to join his dad on a business trip. The next week was our spring vacation from school, and we were going to join his dad in DC as his dad did work stuff, and my buddy and I were just going to hang out and do DC stuff. And we did that, except this time, then I took an afternoon, went over to the Naval Academy, went to the admissions office, and the same lady recognized my story, and I recognized her voice, and she's like, "Oh, you're lucky, because the New England representative for admissions officers is this guy, Captain Malillo, Marine Corps captain, and he's there in his office right now. You can go check him out, go talk to him." So I walked down the hall, turned the corner, and bump into my first Marine that I ever met my whole life. Perfect, in uniform, haircut, shoes, like the whole deal.
Yeah, I'm sure there's not a single thing out of place.
Yeah, not a single thing out of place. And I was very intimidated, and I'm like, oh, geez, what am I doing? But I just kind of knew, okay, I got to tell this guy my story. So explain what happened, 4 or 5 minutes total, maybe 6 minutes in his office. And he's like, nods and goes, okay, I'll see what I can do. I'll get back to you. And I left and go back to my hometown, driving back with my buddy and his dad. And I'm thinking to myself, well, at least I can live with myself. I gave it my best shot, but I'm clearly got to come up with something else, because I'm not going here. And then the next week in school, he calls me and says, hey, I got good news, Cassidy. This is Captain Malillo in the Naval Academy. I can get you into the Naval Academy prep school, but you got to tell me on this phone call if you want it or not. That gift of an opportunity, he didn't know it. I didn't know it, but he changed the direction of my life. And that's why that story is so important to me, because that gift of an opportunity from that guy who didn't owe me anything. I was just a goofball kid that didn't do the process right when every other kid did the process right. Yeah. But he gave me that, and I got to go to the prep school. As you know, if you just maintain basic grades, you automatically get to Annapolis. And while you and I were plebes together and young sophomores, we met the SEALs guys that were on staff there. I didn't really know about SEALs
Same.
until
Didn't know
then.
anything.
And I saw Matt Hickey and who was it, Chief Black, I guess, running around
Chief
there
Black.
and doing
Yeah.
PT with those guys. Got me all fired up for that. And we did all the process and got positions and all of that. I didn't know that I could still be, I thought you had to be a pilot to be an astronaut. I wasn't even thinking about being an astronaut. And then I met Bill Shepard after we got to our first year at 4 as SCVs, I think is when I met Bill Shepard. And I asked him, how'd you become an astronaut? He's like, well, I just applied. Anybody can apply. And so my point of all that rambling is because a Marine guy gave a young person an opportunity, that path to you and I sitting here today was possible. And you never know when those little intersections in life can change one's life, your own or somebody else's.
Did you, that Captain Malone, did you subsequently or since that time, have you connected with him?
So super interesting.
Thank him for that?
Peggy has heard me tell this story hundreds of times, and I'd never met him and never could track him, didn't know who he was other than that blip in a moment in time in 1988. And
was he gone by the time you got the academy?
Yeah, he was gone. And so in 2020, before my last space flight, we were having a party for friends and family, and Peggy kept on asking me, what are you going to tell the people at the party? And she never asked me that. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to, they're my friends and family. I'm going to say, I love you. See you after the mission. And she's like, no, you should tell the Captain Malolo story. You should tell. I'm like, okay, I'll tell it. And so we're at this party, 200 of my closest friends and family in the room. And I'm telling this thing about how Captain Malolo is the reason I can be here standing and say goodbye to all you guys for a space flight. And she stopped me at the punchline and she's like, hold on, Captain Malolo, you please stand up.
That's
so Peggy
awesome.
tracked him down in 2020. And I finally got to do what you said, shake his hand, give him a hug, say thank you for a gift of a lifetime.
I had something similar. Grew up in, remember at the academy, what's your podunk, right? Well, I literally grew up in a podunk, if you want to call it. Didn't know anything about the military. Yeah. And what was 2 flashing red lights, not even a stoplight. And it's still the same today. But it was my superintendent who saw something in me. I didn't know anything about service academies. And my congressman was visiting our high school one day, and he introduced me to him. And my congressman, Jim Leach, said, hey, did you ever consider a service academy? I said, no, sir, I don't really know anything about them.
Oh, wow.
Turned out my dad had wrestled for the head coach at Navy, Coach Wicks, and introduced me. But our superintendent, Steve Waterman, his son was 2 years behind me, went to West Point, and I tracked him down recently and said, hey, I want to send an email to your dad. So I sent an email to his dad and thanked him. Similar to you, like changed the trajectory of my life.
Right.
And true to form, he's like, well, I appreciate that, but that's what we did at your high school. We had a really good set of teachers that looked after the students, and I was just doing my job. So he was very humble about it, but I was glad I was able to track him down and thank him, because at the time I didn't know what he was doing for me. Yeah. And I assume since that time you've had experiences where you're Captain Malolo, you're doing the same for other people now. It's like something that's in your mindset to purposely seek out something, and those maybe don't see it in themselves.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I get, just like you, I'm sure here in the Dallas area, there's not a whole lot of Navy SEAL guys, and there's even fewer astronauts. So I get asked to speak with a lot of young people, and I do it with a lot of excitement, because their life is ahead of them and they need guidance and help. And I just was so appreciative of that in my life. I'd look to give it back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah.
A lot of the same in some of the young generation. They just, they probably more knowledgeable than we were with the internet and the like, but there's still a lot of not knowing what they didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about when your time in the teams, transitioning from the academy, which is a good crucible for learning how to lead, but it's different to lead your peers who are in, maybe a year or two apart. But then to go lead guys who have forgotten more about than what you're ever going to learn operationally. And how did you strike the balance between being in charge, but at the same time listening to your guys?
And then I had a really awesome platoon chief right in the beginning, Mike Slinger. He was a chief in my STT class, and then he became my chief in my platoon. So we really kind of formed a bond throughout that whole process. And he was just really skilled at guiding a young officer, but making me think I was still leading.
Yeah, I
And
know what you mean.
helping me be the best JO I could be and learning along the way. And I was so appreciative of him. I had a great commanding officer too at the beginning, Doug Lau.
Yeah, I remember the name.
Yeah. The short answer to your question was I immediately judged a couple people wrong incorrectly when I met them first, and then learned, oh my God, how wrong you were
Yeah.
before anything could happen. But in my head, I recalibrated my thinking about all I can do is learn here, and I got to learn.
Well, to me, one of the things I think about is it's a series of instances in your life, whether you're a senior in high school, then you're a plebe. Graduate the academy, you're an ensign, then you go to buds.
Yeah.
Graduate buds, and then you show up in FNG.
Mm-hmm.
Is right back to the bottom of the proverbial totem pole.
Yeah.
And so it's humbling when you're like, yeah, I've achieved something, but it's this constant like, okay, you've gotten here, but show me what you've done lately. What's next? What's
Yeah.
next? Or the only easy day was yesterday. It's really true when you think
really,
about it.
really true. And the caveat to that is it's very easy to be have some self-doubt, like, am I capable? Am I ready to lead these kind of quality of men and people? But I've kind of figured out in life that each time you find yourself in one of those new situations where you are, hey, show me the goods that you got, kind of, you wouldn't be there if people didn't believe that you should be.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't graduate from the academy if the academy didn't think you should. You wouldn't graduate from BUDS if the instructors didn't think you should. You wouldn't be a platoon OIC if the team didn't think you were ready. So other people believe in you, so you should believe in yourself. And when you combine those two things, you're going to be successful.
One of the themes I wanted to talk to you about is this notion of I think it's easy to, whether it's imposter syndrome or to have doubt, to say, okay, I've trained for this stuff, but now I have to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is combat, which you saw in Afghanistan, or I love the story you told on Admired Leadership about the first spacewalk you did and how it's disorienting, but then you just go back to your training, right?
Yeah.
I'm ready for this. I'm curious about each of those instances. One was in Afghanistan, and then maybe we can pivot to the astronaut program where maybe you did have some doubts, but then what is it, trust in training or otherwise, that helped you overcome that?
This is great. I love this subject because training and preparation are so key and fundamental to everything. At a very basic level, think about a kindergartner going into the first day of school, scared to death, clinging to mom or dad's leg. I don't want to go there. It's scary. It's unknown. They're big ogres in there. And then mom or dad comes back at lunchtime and they don't even care about mom or dad because they got 12 new buddies and the teacher's amazing. And all of that fear and anxiety is gone. I feel like fear and anxiety are ratcheted up with unknown and uncertainties, and training and preparation minimizes unknowns and uncertainties.
Yeah.
You're never going to minimize them to zero, right? Like if you're getting on a helicopter and you're going to a mission, anything could happen that you haven't predicted. Same thing, you get onto a rocket. We watched these guys go around the moon last week. Anything could happen, but they were so well trained. Mission Control was so well trained. As to the maximum extent you could, the anxieties are gone because of training and preparation, and you just know the team has a solid foundation to fall back on.
Just from a leadership perspective, going from leading a SEAL platoon or task unit in Afghanistan to then just once again top your game.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're a new guy in the astronaut program again. What was that transition like, and what were the key fundamentals that carried over that helped you be successful?
The key the transition was interesting. One, like you said, I at that point as a SEAL operator, I felt pretty comfortable with the mission. I felt comfortable with my gear and my team and my chief and the platoon, and felt very dialed in. And then starting up a whole new operational world I didn't know anything about. So there was like a technical aspect of learning the new operator. So, you know what I mean? Like all that goes into that. But it was very comfortable feeling the training environment where you train, you do a run in whatever thing it is, and then you debrief it and you do it again. You the instructors throw curveballs and change the
Yeah.
whatever around, and you get better and better incrementally. So that part felt really comfortable. It was much more academic testing as an astronaut. So as you remember, in SEAL training, it's way more, you do a brief, maybe there's some studying that you got to do to understand it, but it's go execute. And astronaut training, that was probably the biggest adjustment. Was it's a lot of book testing and testing your knowledge, and then your application of the knowledge in the simulator. And so it just took me a little bit to get used to that, but I was very comfortable with the training environment as a whole. Wasn't so comfortable with the being a representative of the agency. As an astronaut, part of your collateral duties is to get out there and be a representative of NASA, and that was kind of foreign.
Yeah, I was just saying I would say that was developing a new muscle for you.
Yeah, it was totally
you're just pretty low key guy.
In our time in the SEAL teams, it was before SEAL was a household word in America, and in fact, I remember my first kind of talk in a high school. Standing there in a blue flight suit, telling them about astronaut stuff. All the questions I was getting were about SEAL things. And I kept on saying, wait, don't you want to ask me about training as an astronaut?
Well, I'm curious about, talk about preparation and training, the amount of time. So you were an astronaut for how many years? Was it
17?
17 years.
Mm-hmm.
You spent a year in space.
Mm-hmm.
The other 16 years, training, preparation, debriefing, probably a test in patience, I would imagine. But then I'm curious about we've talked about this a little bit before, but the feeling of that very first time where you're on that launch pad.
Yeah.
What was the mix of excitement, anxiety, or any other emotions that you had?
All of that pride for your family, pride for your nation. You're looking at the American flag on your shoulder. But like you said, the nerves, did I train enough? Do I know? Am I going to look at the right spot at the right time?
And you were on the space shuttle at least once before it retired, right?
My first launch was on a space shuttle in 2009, and I was sat up on the flight deck and backed up the pilot with his activities. And but that first mission, you're all those emotions at once, and then you climb into the rocket about 3 hours before launch, and then you give a fist bump to your buddy who closes the hatch, and then you're sitting there for 3 hours, and it's hard to be super locked in, no joking around for 3 hours. So there's little comedy,
probably a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, you're just lying there talking about, I got to go to the bathroom, whatever, and then it comes, and this gets back to the emotion and the feeling. It gets to this thing called the T-9 hold. So they intentionally stop the countdown clock at 9 minutes in the case of the shuttle, and they go around all the positions and get a thumbs up, go for launch flight on the radio loop. And it's always the weather one that gets you. And we had been aborted for weather a few times. And I remember when the flight director was going around, Fido, go, surgeon, go, prop, go, weather, flight, we're go. And I remember we all looked at each other and
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Holy cow. You close and lock your visors. Everybody switched down. I remember, and it gives me chills thinking about
was it 3 of you?
There's 7-person crew.
7, okay.
There's
3, that would be small.
4 sitting upstairs and 3 people sitting downstairs.
So then it got real. Was anyone else, was it it was your first one? Others had been on flights before for that?
There were 3 of us who it was our first launch.
Yeah, okay. And so, get back to the emotions.
And so then it just gets super, super intense. And what I remember distinctly, and we'd done hundreds of simulators runs in Houston, practicing that moment, but it just felt different. It's called challenge and response. When you're working a checklist, somebody says oxygen, and the other guy goes on, or computer engaged, or whatever. I don't remember exactly the verbiage, but it's one word, a challenge, and a one word response, and very crisp. And it was music to hear it in the cockpit as the clock's ticking down to that final minute, and then 10 seconds, and then the engine's light, and boom, off you go. And all of those feelings kind of go away. And because that's what I love about operations and operational world. all those emotions kind of strip away, and you're just focused on what you got to do. And then afterwards you can reflect back and, whoa, that just happened. Holy cow, that was insane.
Yeah, but in the moment,
In
you're
the moment,
focused.
you're just, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, like from wrestling and from your own SEAL experiences. None of that other stuff matters. You're just like dialed in from your training and your preparation,
Yeah.
and you're just razor's edge. And I love that feeling.
I'd be fascinated to hear, I've heard you tell a story, but I'd like to hear it again about the first time you did a spacewalk.
Yeah.
That feels like it'd be that next level. If you're in space, but then to actually go outside of the confines would be fairly intimidating.
You're spot on. If we're, I mean, you and I are on the 53rd floor right here, and we look out the window. Yeah, it's pretty far down there, but if all of a sudden you remove those windows and we put our toes on the edge of those windowsills right there, and there's nothing holding us back, you're like, whoa, you're gonna fall. It's a totally different feeling, right? But we didn't
I can only
change our
imagine.
altitude at all, and it's the same thing looking out the window of a spacecraft. Like, oh, there's Earth. It's pretty far down there, and then all of a sudden you open that hatch and you're hanging on. And for me, um, we were inside the airlock, and it's quite a process to get there. You got to do oxygen pre-breathe and get the nitrogen out of your body, and it's hours, 4 hours or so.
4 hours. So I don't think most people, well, I guarantee most people have no clue.
Yeah.
Just to prepare for a spacewalk, 4 hours before you actually are physically outside of the craft.
Go to the bathroom, get some chow real quick, and then you go right into putting your suit on. And we even sleep at a decreased pressure inside the airlock that night, all in the name of getting your body acclimated for the pressures that you're going to see. Anyway, so you put your suit on, you have 4 hours of oxygen pre-breathe, and then you get go for EVA, depressurize, and at that moment in time, I was the hatch opener. One guy is the switch and valve guy, and one guy is the hatch opener, based on where you are. And I was the hatch guy. And they said, "All right, Chris, pressures are good. You go to open the hatch." So I crank open the handle, I pull it off the seal, and it doesn't. The pumps can't get every molecule of air out of there. So there's still a little teeny bit of residual air pressure. You got to kind of put some elbow grease in to getting it open. And so I did that. And a straw, just a normal drink straw from drinking a water bag or something, had floated out of the trash can and was right next to my head when I pulled the hatch off. And that last little puff of air took the straw and it went, and it disappeared down like into the clouds and out of my view. And I remember being frozen for a second, like, I don't want to be that straw. Don't let go. But we always build in like 10 minutes of adaptation time, is called, for your first spacewalk, which really just no work's expected out of you. Just settle in, control your heart rate, control your breathing, and you just want to be so fast. You want to be efficient, and you don't realize that you're breathing hard and you're working the rig too much. And so I learned a lot from that first one and settle in. But man, that first time you see Earth 250 miles below your toes going 5 miles a second, it's like, whoa, here we are, game on.
Well, one of the things that I think that is interesting, and I appreciate it more as I've gotten more seasoned and older, is this notion that smooth is fast.
Yeah.
I think it's easy, whatever you might be doing, whether it's work or otherwise, but the more, it feels like, even if you think about professional athletes, if you think about like the Tom Brady's of the world, what's amazing to me is when you say it looks like the game is in slow motion to them. And the ability to be calm and slow things down is so helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about, after having learned that after your first spacewalk, how has that helped you, whether it was transition to the private sector and the role you had or otherwise, the ability to just like take a deep breath and slow things down?
Yeah, exactly. It has helped tremendously. And also to realize, like, however bad something is, you can always make it worse. And it gets worse way faster than it gets better usually. So
that's a good way to think about it.
Do your best to not make it worse. That's kind of breaking even. And then bit by bit, you can improve a situation with good decision making, taking on intel or data or whatever your jargon is, to then refine those decisions and incrementally get better, but it's very rare, if never, that something, because one decision, all of a sudden it's fixed. But it can definitely go the other way. One decision, because it was a bad one, all of a sudden get really bad.
Yeah.
And I think that plays right into your slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, the timing of this is really interesting. I had a chance to talk to you a day or two after Artemis. Open question. Like I'm curious about having known the people that were on that, having been on the program and seen its evolution. I'm just curious about your thoughts and emotions on that, and where you see that. It's speaking of leadership, like how we, as a country, as a society, are leading when it goes back into adventuring in space again.
Yeah. And well, I think at a high level, the success of this mission and flying it and learning the things we did, because every mission you learn something in space or in military, whatever. This mission lays the groundwork to have us as a nation continue to be a leader in space exploration. But with the success that we saw last week, there's no doubt we'll have a robust plan on getting people back to the surface of the moon and staying there. NASA just a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, rolled out a game plan with a timeline. And I think that the program is solid and the plan is solid. And in very soon order, we'll be seeing people on the surface of the moon regularly. Pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's a good baseline to start again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it 253,000 miles from Earth or something?
Mm-hmm.
Farthest ever?
Yeah. A good way to remember it is this International Space Station is about 200 miles off the surface of the Earth, and the moon is about 250,000 miles away. So big difference in complexity to go from the space station to the moon and back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to adjust your leadership again to the private sector, had to really up your game when it came to being a spokesman for the Medal of Honor Museum, wildly successful in setting that up. What's next? Like, what if you think about what you want to do next to challenge yourself, continue to give back as you have? And by the way, I'm remiss in not mentioning, I'm looking forward to being there in September.
Oh, yeah.
For those who don't know, the Naval Academy honors 4 or 5 graduates every year as distinguished graduates. And this fall, you're going to be the second member of our class to be inducted into that prestigious group, which is pretty
very
cool.
humbling, and can't wait to share that with our classmates. But
yeah, it's going to be fun. But what's next for you if I even think about the audience out there, like who's looking for a really strong leader to lead an organization?
Yeah.
Where would a guy like you fit in? Like, where your interests lie?
It's a great question. Obviously, defense and aerospace is what people kind of bucket me in, but I'm open to kind of anything, because I want to work with good people, and I want to work on something that I feel like the mission is a good one and advances something for our country or for people. And that's a wishy-washy answer. How do you quantify that? And that's what I'm working on right now, what that means. But I think solving big issues in the world is interesting, like energy and clean water and things that affect lots of people. So there's lots to talk about AI and all those things, and that's cool. But working on, in a small part, something that solves a major global challenge would be really rewarding.
Well, if I maybe close with this, if you've led in so many different environments throughout your career, if you had to distill down like the small handful of like non-negotiables or little fundamentals to leadership that you think are key for anyone, regardless of environment, like what would you say are the fundamentals that are most important to you?
I think for me, it's be the leader you want to be led by, but also be yourself. People see right through phony people.
Yeah, they do.
And you could probably think of a number of examples. Treat people the way you want to be treated. In other words, be the leader you want to be led by, and just be you.
Yeah, I like it's pretty simple concept, but not necessarily easy to execute.
Yeah.
Good, man. Well, I'm looking forward to, we'll be seeing each other before then, but the distinguished graduate ceremony in Annapolis in September is going to be great. So congrats again. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate it. And great to be with you here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.